with progress in all significant ramifications. Going forward, the year 2023 comes with lots of promises, and we will be there each step of the way. But before we get right into it, I would like to take some steps back and review some of the issues we discussed in 2022. Let's begin. I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
Look
celebrate
into the language
our
issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate.
Many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These and applications, there are terms and conditions.
Of course, it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odikpo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
I remember the year 2022 heralded by so much optimism, yet with this dark cloud hovering, arising from a sharp spike in incidents of death and murder associated with ritual killings. Insight at the time threw up a conversation on the fallacy of ritual killings, the myth and misconception of wealth as success. I'd like to begin by hitting the nail on the head and creating and ask you if you think there's a basis in common sense for the narrative that it's possible for a woman head to vomit volumes of cash in the bedroom of a rich person, maybe a head that they've cut and severed, of course, and wrapped and set up in one altar somewhere in a room. How is that even possible for the devil to give free wealth to a person that he hasn't given to the herbalist or the native doctor in the first place? Is it possible, or do you consider that a myth? Sheikh, Ustaz, Chief Imam, please, I'd like to begin with you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we appreciate Him, we acknowledge His presence with us at all time. Like you were saying about the ritual killings for money and what have you, I want to begin by saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and has also created shaitan, that is Satan, alone. And a lot of things are happening that will push it to shaitan, that it is shaitan that has made us to misbehave in one way or the other. The first thing I want to say is that this thing we are discussing is not just happening. It's not a new thing, if you will agree with me. It has been there for long. It is just becoming rampant this time around. It is always becoming order of the day. The love for money that everybody is coming up with makes it more rampant. It has always been there. And as far as Islam is concerned, it is what you believe in that will come up to what you are struggling to have. Generally, and with common sense, when you go with divine sense, you will all believe that nothing can happen without the knowledge of Allah, without the knowledge of God, without the power of God. And common sense will also give us certain understanding, certain informations about what happens in our life. And we all believe that certain things have been given, God has given man certain opportunities, certain power to do certain things. One of those things that God has allowed man to do freely, then he's there to judge. He has shown us the wrong way, the right way. So whichever one we feel we want to go for, we go for it. And the nemesis and the rewards and punishment will catch up with anyone who goes to either of the way.
Father Leo, you've just said Chief Imam Nasfat Mox explain the fallacy or myth of ritual money. Is this a position you concur with? And how exactly does that deviate from the biblical injunction or inscription about God providing all of our needs according to his riches in glory. Is that perhaps what these young adults that we see gallivanting, if that is the word, and then committing these, wreaking this havoc all over the country doing?
Well, I will begin by appreciating you for inviting me to say a word or two on this program. I pray that as we're beginning this year with the Lord, as we walk with God, and as we never depart from his ways, he will guide us and he will prosper the works of our hands.
Amen.
I want to start with that, then let me go straight into your question.
Please.
The incessant ritual killings. The incessant ritual killings for the love of money has come due to the fact that those who we elected to govern us have not really done their part very well. If the electorate, those who we have elected to govern us, do their part very well, and what am I saying? Providing an economic balanced playground for everyone to struggle and get wealth, genuine wealth, not fake wealth, providing the necessary amenities, which are light, good roads, and constant water. If the government of the day are able to do this for the low man and woman out there, I think people will not be shifting to this rate of ritual killings to cut people's hair, human hair,
Yes.
and then make it into money.
Father
But
Leo, I
because-
get that completely, and I agree with you 100% that government does have a major role to play in elevating, improving the well-being of the people. Well, but like I did say at the beginning, at the onset of our program, I would like for us to create a basis for our discussion. I got Ustaz's opinion on whether or not ritual money or ritual money, I beg your pardon, is a myth or a fallacy, or if indeed it is true. You heard his impression of that. I would like your impression of that as well. I mean, looking at this from the religious angle as well,
I, in my own religion, we're told in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, from verse 33, the Word of God says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all other things will be added unto you." So in my religion, in Christianity, we do not in any way encourage or advise people to go to the level of killing a human being just for the sake of money. In fact, it is even against one of the commandments that God gave himself to Moses, which says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Do you also recall the Twitter ban and subsequent return? Well, there were lessons learned on the way forward, and that was also another conversation or issue of conversation on Insight.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nasri, on the program.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, what does this portend for our ICT sector, the latest development?
The latest development, it's very good. And we need to understand that this is an innovation that is operating within the digital economy. Okay, this is a new economy, especially in the era that we're talking about, moving away from the oil-based economy. Globally, you would look at a lot of countries have set deadlines where they would stop using cars that are powered by petrol. So we need to start looking long-term. Okay, if all these countries are moving away from these resources that we value so much and treasure in this country, how do we survive in the next 50 years? How do you survive in the next 100 years? So this is a new development because it's now reshaping our thinking towards building this digital economy. Now the question is, how do we move on? The federal government recently unbanned unbanned Twitter, means that it allowed Twitter to operate. So now it has set deadline, it has set goals and targets for Twitter to operate within certain constraints. So it means that Twitter should respect the Nigerian laws. Twitter needs to set up a local contact office here in Nigeria. So that means that Twitter and the Nigerian government can have these discussions around building the digital economy. Twitter will be allowed to operate freely as much as it can within the confines of the Nigerian constitution. So it's a good thing, because it would allow all these people that have been deprived from operating their businesses to come back and start operating their business within this system of Twitter. It's an open conversation that includes the broader Nigerians, but we need to keep in mind that, look, we cannot allow certain things to operate within that social media. For example, this insurgency. Another topic that we need to talk more on is the cyber bullying.
I would like to ask you this question, because it looks like regulating social media platforms is difficult. With your experience in the field, in the sector, why is this so?
It's very, very difficult to regulate it, because it's the social media space is actually very broad. It exceeds the shore of Nigeria. I mean, you have people on Twitter Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms that probably are Nigerians or non-Nigerians from other sectors of from other parts of the world. I mean, Facebook, if you look at it, they have a lot of users. I mean, if Facebook was a country, it would have been one of the largest countries in the world, simply because they have a number of users. So that makes it very, very challenging. But of course, at the same time, we need to look at ways in which we can regulate this industry. There are a lot of tools right now that are used for this social media, like to do sentiment analysis, to see what kind of discussions are going on Twitter and other social media platforms. And it's important for the regulatory authorities to actually be in the know of the conversations that are taking place on the social media platforms, using the various tools that are available. And the idea is a lot of movements start from this social media space, and if they are not curtailed, it can lead us into the wrong direction. And the regulation is not something we just pull out a card and say, okay, this is it, we're doing this. It's something that it has to be carefully considered. It has to look at the various interests of the various stakeholders to ensure that Nigeria is moving towards the right direction and using these social media platforms in the right way.
All right, let's talk about the economic effect of the ban. Multiple reports have it that Nigeria lost over $1.2 billion to the suspension. This is quite huge. What are your thoughts?
Importantly to understand is, even though there was a ban in place, there was a lot of people that were actually active on social media and still carry out. But we need to look at how much percentage of people were taken off that social media, because I know some particular individuals were actually off social media completely because of the ban. Though some people were using virtual private networks to go on the networks, which the government seriously discouraged because of the possible implications that we have. But it's important to know that, yes, there were financial losses that were acquired in the process, and we need to look at how do we address these kind of losses in the future. For example, perhaps when there's a ban that would come in place, there should be like a timeline or a window that would allow other people that use social media, that depend on social media platforms, perhaps to look for alternatives, perhaps. But the idea is there's no blueprint as to what is the best way forward, because a lot of these things are innovations, and with innovation it becomes really, really hard to make predictions what would happen in 5 years, what would happen in 6 years. But we just need to be on the lookout for the direction of things, especially with regards to these economic activities that are happening on social media.
All right, if I get you correctly, there's no blueprint to guard against such recurrence. So what do we do?
Well, that's why we need to engage more of the stakeholders, so that, like, for example, the users of these social media platforms, now that Twitter is coming on board, like in Nigeria, there needs to be, like, for example, if they're going to release a new version of Twitter that would cater or would have XYZ features, it's important for Twitter to actually engage the federal government and say, okay, look, not just Twitter, but all the social media platforms, and say, okay, look, we're bringing out a new feature that would address certain, and so it will allow the user to do XYZ. does that agree with the constitution of Nigeria? So that's one way to go about it. I mean, it's fine and good for the social media platform to release out new versions, new features that would allow the users to be able to do things, but at the same time, those things should be in line or in conformity with the conventions of Nigerian laws.
All right. I'm just thinking out loud. Shouldn't we have our own social platforms where we can do a thing? Because the Twitter is peculiar to the Americans. So what are experts doing in this regard?
Well,
I ask because you're one of them.
yes, thank you for that acknowledgement. Innovation is very, 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 very difficult. Like, for example, it's almost impossible to predict what application would go viral in Nigeria. So, because every application sort of caters for a certain segment of the global economy. For example, when Facebook started, it was addressing the needs of the a community within Harvard University. Then later up, it scaled up to broader Americans, and then of course everybody else latched on it. So, but looking at the local content perspective, my words would be to the entrepreneurs that are based locally that are trying to come up with solutions. I've seen a number of solutions, and I can tell you that Nigerians are probably some of the most resilient, hardworking, and most innovative individuals around the world. For whatever application that is built in America, I can tell you that there are young minds in Nigeria that can sit down and build something equivalent. But of course, we need to encourage all the stakeholders that within the industry, okay, let's start looking inwards. Okay, there's a new social media platform out, let's evaluate it. And that's where perhaps our Kannywood and our Nollywood come in. For example, when you push out a new app, it shouldn't just be an app that sits on the social media, on the internet space. It needs to be something that you actually have to promote by perhaps leveraging on the celebrities, trying to promote it. And then eventually Nigeria has a population of 200 million or a little over 200 million. Yeah. And I can tell you a large chunk of that is they're actually on using smartphones to actually access this device. So the thing is, we have the capacity, we have the manpower, but we just need that opportunity, give that local content a chance to be able to thrive. And for the innovators, for the local content, it needs to be as good as those ones coming out from Silicon Valley in America, so that they can be globally competitive. Because when you build an app, you shouldn't just build it for the Nigerian market. It should be something that can scale up to all our brothers in West Africa and our friends in China. It should be something that the broader economy, global economy, can use. Because if it's too particularized to Nigeria, there's that tendency that it's limiting itself. Like the application would probably die before it even get lifted. So this is this is an interesting discussion that we're having around building an innovative platform that would actually make Nigerians comfortable, make Nigerians own it, make Nigerians feel that, okay, they have something that is ours.
It means we need to look inward and then think outside the box. Nasser Sadiq, thank you so much for your thoughts on Insight this week.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Earlier that same year, we also threw up a deep conversation on growing Nigeria's non-oil export. And we had a business export consultant as our guest. We'll get to the export expansion facility program presently, but let's begin with the basics in terms of product export.
Yes.
So export is typically a sales and revenue generation strategy. But then what do you mean when you say there is the need to know what to do?
Sure.
How and when exactly to do them when it comes to the export business, especially within the context of made in Nigerian products? Sure. Is there a difference between just putting your goods on a plane,
yes,
and having someone ship it? Like you would say, I've read up a bit about you, and I know it's the popular saying that, one of your popular sayings, and doing the right thing. I guess my question is, which is the proper way to export?
So if you look at the problem Nigeria is facing now, a lot of our products, from what I hear, talking to people, agencies like NAFDAC and co, is being rejected abroad. And the reason is simple. You have a lot of people who think export is just about putting goods on a plane, like you just said. And it takes more than that, The first thing you need to know is that any country you are sending goods to, they have regulations that guide how things should be when they are coming in, because they are trying to protect their citizens, especially when it comes to food or cosmetics. anything that the body, has to take, And then when you even talk about other materials, other things, building materials, they don't want to use materials from a country that the building will collapse after a while. So they are definite standard. And that is one of the areas Nigeria is lacking. Proper training of our small, medium, and large businesses on the rules and regulations that is needed by countries that you are exporting your product to. And that is one of the key things we strive to do at Export and Sell. Show businesses the regulations, help them to get the licenses so that when they export their product, there's 100% certainty that they will not have any issues whatsoever. So to sum it, export is not just about putting your products on a plane. You have to look at the regulations and make sure you are doing things right.
Okay, so knowing what we know now, I mean, not just your company, because that's not our key focus.
Sure.
But of course, there are other players as well in the industry. But knowing what we know and how some players like yourself have keyed into the federal government Exports Expansion Facility program, would I be correct in saying that the initiative, and I'm talking about EEFP now, was expansive in nature, combining availability of funds to prospective non-oil businesses here in Nigeria, alongside assisting new and existing businesses in growing technical and practical knowledge on the proper way to export their products?
I think, yes, I'll say yes to your question. The EFP has played a very huge role in helping businesses of all size, get into the export business. For example, one of the key things that they have done that makes the scheme really fascinating is that they were able to identify key players in export, not just individual companies that help to export, but companies that have the ability to open up the way for 100, 500, thousands of companies to export. And again, like you say, yeah, not just my company, yes, but what we do, for example, we help show you how to export. So that opens up an opportunity, not just for my company, but for thousands of companies to export. And that is one of the key things the EEFP grant, of which we are a proud recipient, has enabled us to do.
As a beneficiary, tell me how it's assessed. I mean, in terms of assessing the loan now. Tell me how all of that play out, basically.
So, we export and sell. We started by
not just export and sell.
Yes,
now, I would like for you to generalize and tell me.
Yes,
but of course, using your
I
own
will
example.
use my own example because I know how I access the fund, and I believe it's the same way that other people did.
Others as well. Yes.
We have been working, training, and NEPC, we've engaged them. They've invited me to train businesses here and there. And from nowhere, I did not even know about the scheme. One of the facilitators of the scheme called and said they've heard about what we do, that they have a facility for businesses like ours. We should apply. I applied. Within 2 weeks, I got a call. I sat down for an interview. It was an intense interview. And that gave me the assurance that these people were really interested.
Was that done by the Export Promotion Council?
It was done by the staffs of the EEFP.
Okay.
After the interview, they said, well, we don't know if you qualify, that they have other companies that they are vetting. And if you meet their criteria, they will obviously give you the grant. And about 3 weeks later, we were told we got the grant. They're only going to give us 50% of what we asked for. After we have shown judicious use of the 50%, before they can consider giving the other 50. And within 2-3 months, we showed judicious use. We were able to open up the first Amazon export warehouse, where companies wanting to export to Amazon can come, drop off their goods. We do a lot to get it ready, prepared for export and sell on Amazon. And then once they saw that, They came for the commissioning. They now approved the other 50. And that other 50 has enabled us to set up a dedicated training facility for medium and large businesses on export. So it's been easy and amazing.
I'm quite sure, or I don't know, same process would apply for small businesses as well.
It is. It is. So let me give you an example. After we got the grant, I spoke to another business that had come through our training, and I told her, she's a manufacturer of fashion products, go and apply for this grant. She applied, and by December, sometime in December last year, she called me to tell me, wow, that she also got the grant. So it is some, anything business, normally Nigerians are skeptical because of all the bureaucracy. But I was really impressed with the way this fund was administered, as far as from my experience and the experience of so many other businesses I know got it.
Incidentally, the 50 billion naira EEFP is a subset of the Economic Sustainability Plan, which is investing hugely in businesses as part of the National COVID-19 Economic Recovery Plan. Wasn't the EEFP launched for a period of 1 year? And in terms of response,
yes,
what have you been able to garner, or what does he say of the potential of small and medium businesses in Nigeria embracing exports?
I think having such a scheme and saying it's going to last for only a year is like a joke to me. You don't set up.
Maybe government is just on a trial basis.
Well,
so not necessarily.
For me, it's a joke, because you don't set up such a scheme and say it will last only a year. This is a scheme that is impacting export. It should be a scheme that ought to be sustained. And I say this seriously because 2021, without the grant, we were able to train about 1,000 businesses. In 2022, with the grant, we are looking at training about 10,000 businesses. And this is what the grant has been able to do. So you need something like that to be continuous, because it's going to have a major impact. Let me give an example.
Please.
When you take the nut, for example, the nut, you have products like neem, the dogon yarrow. You have products like the hibiscus zobo. These are things that you see lying fallow everywhere in the nut. A company, I can name 3-4 companies, because we have analysis of sales on Amazon, that are doing about $1 million every month selling zobo. We have companies that are doing about $500,000
selling zobo abroad.
So when I say zobo, I mean the hibiscus tea. That is what these companies are doing. But these are products that are just lying waste, lying fallow in the nut. So you need this scheme to continue to enhance small businesses that can tap into this type of products and this type of opportunity. That is what we need. Take a look at Ghana. You have so many products that are on Amazon now selling in Ghana. You have companies who are doing over $700,000 monthly, selling things as simple as African black soap. The potentials are there, and it crosses the whole country. This scheme really needs to be extended so that we can tap more into this potential. It really needs to.
In terms of response, because you're quite excited about, of course, no, I mean, it's quite obvious that you're excited about the scheme and how much so it has impacted.
Sure.
But then in terms of response and gauging the level and strata of businesses that have, assessed the fund for loans, would you say, if in the event, of course, that the scheme is extended or sustained, what do you foresee? What do you envisage and envision?
If we as a company can go from 1,000 to training 10,000 companies to sell on Amazon within a year because of this fund, you have hundreds or thousands of other companies that benefited from the fund. So you can see what it can do. This is an investment that is critical, that will lead to creating jobs, and you see, when we talk about the ability of what this can do, it's not just us that has benefited. You have manufacturers, you have shippers, you have one of, when I was discussing with one of the coordinators, they told me they've been able to set up export warehouses outside of Nigeria where Nigerian businesses can leverage and use as a warehouse for their goods that they are exporting. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria, in our seriousness with export, that such a thing has happened. So one of the key things you need to do is, look, you don't throw 50 billion at people and you don't monitor it. There has to be a sustainability of the scheme so that, one, they are able to monitor it. And those companies they see that are performing well, they give them more so that they can even do better. That is what we need to grow our non-oil export.
Even at the start of 2022, the 2023 general elections were already in the thick and middle of most public conversations, and Nigerians generally began to register keen interest, especially the youth. Here on Insight, we began to lay the groundwork for what was to come later that year.
The African Youth Charter recognizes young people as individuals within the age range of 15 to 35. They are indeed the future of the country and represent it at every level. The intelligence and work of the youth will take the country on the path of success. As they are the building blocks of a country, youth around the world are faced with myriad of problems in creating and utilizing opportunities for representation to decision-making bodies. The involvement of youth in governance leads to civic engagement. Active and engaged young people can be a source of government innovation and improved service for development. How can the Nigerian youth leverage on the opportunities by the government to make a desired change? My guest, Godwin Ozo, Chief Executive Officer, Advocacy for Youth Empowerment and Emancipation, will answer this and other questions on the program. Mr. Godwin, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you.
All right, what is the position on youth inclusion in governance?
Youth inclusion in governance is a good thing. The United Nations encourages youth to participate in the process that will help better their lot in governance and in other things that has to do with their welfare. Because the UN itself has set up 2030 as sustainable development goals, and youths have to participate in order to benefit from this program. The Nigerian government has also set up its own program where the youths need to participate in order to be able to benefit from other government programs by bringing their own ideas, their own initiatives, and participating as well, so that everything will work for the better of the youths and for the society.
All right. Several social groups have always called for inclusion of the youth in governance, but how can the youth leverage on opportunities to take them or to make them politically inclined for leadership?
Without participating, the government will have programs and youths will not know how to, take advantage of those programs. As well, the government will need to know what are the hopes and aspirations of the youths in order to roll out programs that will benefit them. And as it says that the person that wears the shoes know how it pinches. If the youths are participating, they should be bringing out where their pains are, where it's hitting them. Is it in education? Is it in unemployment? Is it in enabling environment for lives and businesses to thrive? And many other things, insecurity, and the main business of government, which is to make sure that people have lives and enabling environment for an atmosphere for businesses and lives to thrive. So participation is key. It's key. If you are not participating, you'll be in the fence and be complaining. They are making it clear to youths that they should strive to be self-reliant. They should strive to have to discover their skills, their talents, and develop them. Because when you sit at home, you don't make yourself, you don't develop your skills, you don't develop your talents, you don't make yourself self-reliant. There's no way you are going to participate actively in governance, because as we know, life is centered on the principles of invisible hands. You must belong in a particular human endeavor, contribute your own quota, and by so doing, you are not going to, be left behind in the mainstream of things. Once you have something to offer, as I said, think of what you can do for your country, and not what you can do, what your country can always do for you. So when you have that idea that you must do something for your country, by then you are contributing to the commonwealth. And as such, if everybody is doing that, most especially the youth, then we will have a better society. Then there will not be a kind of a meeting point between the government program and what one is contributing to the economy, and is so doing, nobody will complain again.
If I check you on your center activities at your center, how do we build the confidence of the Nigerian youth?
The confidence could be built, and the benefits therein reaped, if we actually believe in ourselves and take advantage of opportunities that abound everywhere, both from the local point of view, your locality where you are coming from. Everybody believe in Abuja. Abuja is just the center. We need to take steps. Now, in your locality, you have a councillor there, you have a local government chairman, you have your reps, you have the Senate, in your precinct, before, and you also have your governor. There are many opportunities within those areas, and you, as a youth, need to cue in these opportunities. You don't always need to believe that you must come to Abuja to make it, or you must believe in handouts coming from government. So you have to start from somewhere, participate. Look, your councillor can actually, do a small program where youths can come in. If those ones who are interested in becoming a musician or footballer or something like that, a councillor can create an avenue. Somebody who has learned how to repair a phone, it doesn't have the tools to repair that phone. A councillor can actually buy, it doesn't cost more to buy a tool to repair a phone. Then you can look at those people that have these skills, empower them, give them the tool, not buying cutlass or buying wheelbarrow to somebody who wants to repair a phone. You can buy the tools for someone who wants to buy repair a phone, and the person repair 1 or 2 or 3 phones, can from there hit the market and become self-made. Everybody must be engaged. Everybody must be participate. It's from this local economy that we can build the central economy, and the Nigerian economy will become a very good and vibrant economy, because the people are the real wealth of the nations.
Of course. Now, in building a vibrant economy, the youth must be empowered. The empowerment is very, very important. Get rich quick syndrome must be eliminated. How do we correct this anomaly amongst our youth?
Revitalizing our value system.
Okay.
There are many things that government could do, that leaders could do, that our parents could do, and things could be put right. Really is not the right thing. Government as a regulator need to see to it that people who have talent, people who have done work, that their work need to pay, and they need to reap the dividends of the good work they've done. This, in essence, will now roll back the value system to be respected. That if you are an engineer, by the work you are doing, you need to have a life that is full of dignity. If you work hard, you can from nobody become somebody. And this is what exactly is lacking in our society, where somebody who has good ideas, or somebody who has good skills, who has good talent, or who has good ideas, but those things are not appreciated. And that is what is killing the morale of the youths who really want to make good impact.
Yeah, all right. Okay, now the development of any country requires active participation from the youth. Your center advocates for inclusion of youth in decision making. What efforts are you making to ensure that the crop of youth we have fully believe in the unity of this nation?
Youth self-reliance. Now, youth self-reliance is key in what we are doing. Youth self-reliance is every youth in this country, or majority of youth in this country. If they achieve self-reliance, government will not have business spending money on insecurity or spending money on things they could use the money to do, like infrastructure.
Yes.
Because if youths are self-reliant, it means that they are better off. It means that they are okay. In this case, they will be paying government tax, and government will be using that money to do infrastructure, roads, healthcare, and the transport and the other things.
Mr. Godwin Ozo, Chief Executive Officer, Youth Empowerment and Emancipation. Thank you so much for your time on Insight.
My pleasure.
And finally for today, the passage and seeming omission, or should I say a rejection of some gender bills by the National Assembly earlier in 2022 also dominated public discourse in the year just past. It's generated lots of questions on the subject of indigenship and citizenship in Nigeria. Barrister, I know the Constitution is all about specificity, and it is explicit on citizenship under Chapter 3 of the Constitution, and in Chapter 4 spells out the fundamental rights that accrue to each citizen. Yet again, in Sections 318, subsection 1 of the 2011 Constitution as amended, it promotes special interest of those said to be born of the soil. That provision talks about the principle of indigenship in the context of ownership of the community, local government, or the state. My question then to you is to clarify this rather confusing two-tier citizenship provisions in the Nigerian Constitution.
Well, the debate is one that is robust, and at the same time bringing to the table a lot of concerns as well as interest. Like you rightly said, the issue of citizenship is defined in Chapter 3 of our Constitution. And when you now come to the Section 318 you just mentioned, where the issue of indigenship is now brought to the fore, it tends to contradict one and it tends to contradict the other. And if you now consider Section 42 of the Constitution, which specifically prohibits discrimination on the basis of tribe, ethnicity, sex, and age, these are contradictions that we have to deal with. So in that light, it is a conversation that is ongoing, but in my own opinion as a legal practitioner, the watchword ought to be chapter 3 rather of the Constitution, which provides for citizenship of Nigeria. It specifically defines who a citizen of Nigeria is. And if that definition, of course, which is acceptable by all, bringing up issues of indigenship will only tend to do what? To contradict that definition of citizenship. Because when you bring in indigenship into citizenship, it tends to narrow down, it tends to belittle that concept of citizenship of Nigeria.
You know, interestingly, I mean, it's also, like I said, gives or forms a two-tier of citizenship. Yes. Is it your opinion that we are all citizens and there shouldn't be any such or any such thing as indigenship, you know, in the Constitution? If the Constitution recognizes citizenship as supreme, I mean, indigenship shouldn't be a subset of that as well, should it?
I agree with you in totality. The concept of indigenship had rather or tends to categorize our citizenship now into first-class citizens and second-class citizens. In other words, indigens or non-indigens are not at the same level, or they are not at par with citizens or indigens of a particular state or a particular place.
So that indigens enjoy, in certain occasions, more rights than non-indigens.
Which of course is wrong, both legally as well as, in fact, you follow the constitutional provisions. Take, for example, what prevails practically in every state today. What an indigen enjoys is not the same thing a non-indigen will enjoy, educationally, politically, name it.
We'll come to that, Barrister. Some would argue that the frequent incursion of indigenship into the polity isn't necessarily a constitutional lacuna, I beg your pardon, or gap in legislation, but rather a problem at the root of the Nigerian character and reflects the core challenge of our nationhood, where ethnic suspicion and unhealthy rivalry are pervasive and ever present. Do you agree?
To a large extent, I agree. But the question we should be answering at this time is, how do we break down the pervasiveness in division? How do we break down the unnecessary acrimony between indigens and non-indigens? I don't know if I can go into a practical example.
Please
take, for example, I grew up in Lagos. My parents lived practically their entire lives in Lagos.
Actually, I was going to say, you don't sound Igbo at all. You sound like me. I sound very Yoruba-ish. And you sound like me. You seem to even have the H factor.
You see, and that is the beauty of our citizenship. I enjoyed free education under Pa Jakonde's administration in Lagos. When I was leaving Lagos for my youth service, I went as far as Meduguri in Borno State. I married a Yoruba woman. My children are growing up learning to speak both the Igbo language as well as the Yoruba language. Now you see, that is a conversation we should be having now, and not bringing up issues of you are an indigen, you are not an indigen. I have read certain history or certain literatures where even before independence, an Hausa man won a major election in Enugu.
Very true.
You understand?
Very
so why should we at this stage, how many years after independence, still be bickering over issues of whether you are an indigen or you are not an indigen?
So just so we are clear, if I am denied my constitutional right, say the right to education or the right to association on the basis of non-indigenship, that person or group or institution is clearly in breach of the constitution and breaking the law of the land.
Yes, it is. It is a breach of the Constitution, particularly Section 42 of the Constitution, which guarantees the freedom against discrimination. And if this is the case, any student, for example, take what is happening in Kaduna State, for example, where students who are not from Kaduna State pay different fees as students who are indigens of Kaduna State. Those who are not indigens of Kaduna State are subjected to pay this extra or astronomical fees, can actually challenge it in courts on the basis that they are being discriminated on the basis of their ethnicity, not on their being Nigerians. And this is very wrong. And I think this should be what the conversation should be today. How do we strengthen our citizenship?
You know, again, I'll say this. It will seem that the problem is not the inadequacy of law, because the laws are there. Let me reference the right to vote and to be voted for, and how that presupposes that once I can vote somewhere, say Bayelsa State, for instance, it also means that I should be able to be voted for in that same place, Bayelsa.
Yes.
You know, though the barest qualification required by law for any elected position in Nigeria is citizenship, but we know for a fact that the mystic notion of indigenship will never allow a Nigerian, say from Ogun State, to vie for governorship of Abia State. Even though you reference, remember you talked about what happened in Enugu in the past. But why is that not, you know, like, why is that not something that is pervasive rather than the continued suspicion and division?
It is.
Even though we have the laws there.
Well, it is really one of the sad commentaries of our political state as we have it today, that many years after independence, we are still grappling with topics like whether you can vie for the highest political office in a state or not, irrespective of where you come from. Democracy is all about numbers. If you've lived in a particular place and you think you can garner enough numbers to get into that office, nothing should stop you from getting into that office. So when we bring up these unnecessary discussions at times like this, in order to do what? To subjugate certain people on the basis that they are not from that particular place, it tends to do what? Tends to belittle the progress we have made as a nation.
So I haven't listened to your arguments. I would like for you to help me assess the arguments of proponents of a constitutional alteration seeking a requalification of the indigenship clause with residency. Isn't there a presupposition already for that in the provisions of the Constitution on citizenship?
You see,
replacing that with residency as in indigenship rather than indigenship, we now say residency. Because I will recall that I think it was sometime in 2019 or so, the governor of Kano State, present governor of Kano State, the present governor of Kano State, Ganduje, pushed for this
issue of residency.
Yes, requalifying that with indigenship.
Well, residency, indigenship, they are basically the same thing. Our opinion, or my own personal opinion, is that it should not matter where you are resident. It should not matter which indigen or where you come from. The fact that you are in a particular place or in any state of the federation, you should be able to contribute your quota and aspire to whatever position that are open for aspirations in those localities.
Registered voter.
Reporting for Dateline 360.
In Jos, Caleb Gochin, Dateline 360.
Naja'atu Tijani.
Dateline 360. Chidi Okrafo.
For Dateline 360.
In Lagos, Michael Olaleye.
Reporting for Dateline 360. I am Omosola Omojola. Thanks for tuning in to Dateline 360.
Well, that's it for this episode. We will bring you the concluding parts of our review, or in review, in the next episode of Insight. I hope you join us same time next week for more. I'm Nnamdi Odipo. See you then.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative, and interactive on national issues accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us.
way Telling about the post this.
Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue.
That's really cool. The idea that is the and do more with less people.
We have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of.
Congratulations, you've been able to sign Timo Werner from RB Leipzig.
So you take water before your workout.
People have used that for little TikTok to do that.
Like that.
A lot of people don't even have resources.
You can't even hear the sound of a cockroach. I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that you're on.
Every year is unique, as each comes with its challenges and prospects. As usual, many people will do a kind of post-mortem in the past year and make projections on what the new year portends. Now, sometimes certain events and schedules make some years more important than the others. The year 2023 is very crucial for Nigeria as a sovereign nation. It is a year filled with great expectations, a year that the nation will witness another population census 17 years after the last one was conducted in 2006, and the fifth since the country attained independence in 1960. In the political space, the 2023 presidential election is coming up in February, with political gladiators traversing the length and breadth with campaigns. And for President Muhammadu Buhari, it is his duty to bequeath a legacy of free, fair, and credible election to Nigerians in 2023. And this he pledged to fulfill. Now, despite going through some rough patches in 2022, Nigeria's economy maintained a steady course in the journey towards achieving a sustainable and viable market space for both foreign and domestic businesses to thrive. On Panorama today, the first edition in the year 2023, coming to you live from the Lagos Network Center of the Nigerian Television Authority, we will take a cursory look at 2022, the lessons learned, and the economic projections for the year 2023, with emphasis on the non-oil sector. My guest is waiting on the wing. I am Adeola Komi Akere. Remember that you can follow this news broadcast live on our website at nta.ng/live and on our other verified social media handle. President Muhammadu Buhari has signed into law the appropriation Bill 2023, totaling 21.83 trillion naira. The president signed the bill at the council chambers of the State House in Abuja. The development comes 6 days after the National Assembly passed the bill. The budget represents an increase of 1.32 trillion naira from the 20.51 trillion naira budget proposal of President Muhammadu Buhari. A breakdown of the budget indicates an allocation of 967.5 billion naira for statutory transfers, 6.6 trillion naira for debt servicing, 8.3 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure, and 5.9 trillion naira for capital expenditure.
Appropriation bill into law as passed by the National Assembly to enable its implementation to commence without delay. however, directed the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning to engage with the legislature to revisit some of the changes made to the executive budget proposal, and it is my hope that you will receive cooperation in this regard from the National Assembly. I also urge the National Assembly to reconsider its position on my proposal to scrutinize the federal government's outstanding ways and means balance of the Central Bank of Nigeria. As I stated, the balance has accumulated over several years and represents funding provided by the CBN as lender of last resort to the government to enable it to meet obligations to lenders as well as cover budgetary shortfalls in projected revenues and for borrowing. I have no intention to fetter the right of the National Assembly to interrogate the composition of this balance, which can still be done even after granting the requested approval.
Now, after the New Year holiday, it is back to business in Lagos on the first working day in year 2023. Correspondent Joel Popola reports that civil servants and other working class Lagosians reported at their duty post with renewed vigor, eager to get the year running. Many of the workers are already setting new agenda and target for the year. The hustling and bustling associated with Lagos is yet to take shape, however, with other categories of workers in the private sector who are still on holiday expected to resume next week. For now, the traffic situation is devoid of the gridlock associated with Lagos on a Monday morning. Contractors handling the second Niger bridge have closed Asaba access of the bridge to stop traffic flow of vehicles passing through the bridge. The closure is for removal of crash barriers from the road to open up Obusi access and the barriers for free flow of traffic for vehicles returning from the southeast to the west. Chinyere Okoli witnessed the event.
This is the Obusi axis of the second Niger bridge. As you can see, it was open for commuters, especially those coming from the southeast region of the country to the western part of the country. The removal of crash barriers at the site by workers was done under the supervision of engineer Oluropo Oyetade, Director Highway Bridge and Design in the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, as workers were seen deploying heavy-duty equipment to remove crash barriers and other diversion points in preparation for temporary reopening of the bridge on Tuesday, the 3rd of January to 15th of January.
We need to change our barriers and install new road sign. This is what I've come to supervise and make sure we have each exercise.
Justin Aniche, a returnee from Arochukwu in Abia State, who was the first commuter to ply the road from Obusi Axis to Lagos, whooped with joy.
I can't be anything